I became crazy. Wild.
Good morning.
Good morning. So
Good
today,
morning.
so today it's kind of a continuation of something we talked about last time, which is the process of aging. Last time we focused on the concept of what is beautiful, and as we age, how we redefine that. But that's just one part of aging. The other is the wisdom that we gain over time, whether that's through dichos that we heard, through lessons we learned personally. And sometimes when we learn those lessons, especially the tough way, we think, and I wish I knew that when, XYZ. And so today we're going to talk about that experience for ourselves. What were the things we wish we knew when we were younger that might have changed some of the outcomes of the things that we went through? So that's the plan for today. Sound good?
Very good.
Completely. Very, very good.
Good, good. So first, I'm going to share a little bit of information because I'm sure this is something that has come up a lot for many folks. And so, of course, I didn't come across a lot of research per se, but I found some articles about people who sort of investigated informally what people say they wish they knew when they were younger. And so I came across two things. One was a Psychology Today article written by a professor who in undergrad, so these are like 21, 22-year-olds, sort of informally over a period asked them the question of what they wish they knew when they were younger. So of course they're reflecting back on like their teenage years, right? But they're in their 20s. So even at that point, I think there's a lot they could still learn. But even at that point in time, these were some of the things that they said. One was create a safe space, meaning make sure the friends you have are more positive than negative, so they nurture you. Take perspective, zoom out. Sometimes we experience a loss or something that went bad, and we zoom in and then make it much bigger than it is in the span of your lifetime. And then you lose sight of other things. The other one is trust yourself. And this includes not comparing yourself to other people, but also being willing to take risks and really being present-minded and then paying attention to what matters. That's kind of like the zoom out piece, right? There's so much in life that, and we've talked about a lot of these things, your health, your family, things like that. And sometimes if we zoom in on something that we think went bad or was devastating, we lose sight of the other things that bring quality to our life. Now, I looked at the other end, 65 plus group. There's about 2,000 of them that were interviewed in a survey, and they had three main things. One was to be patient and be open to listening. Don't do a lot of this. Also be willing to listen. Don't let others make decisions for you. And sometimes this happens. People go down a professional path because they think that's what their family wants. And then they learn the hard way that they, in fact, were not really interested in that, but they did it to please others. So make sure the decisions you make are your own decisions. And then to enjoy every part of your life, because life is fleeting. Life is finite, at least in this plane. And you got to enjoy it. So those were some of the things that I found. But now I want us to look at some of the things that we wish we would have known when we were younger to influence some of the things that happened to us. And I will start with the Laura.
Well, you know what? I think the most important thing that I've been realizing nowadays that I'm this old and I wish I would have known better would be all the taboos, all the situations, because again, we come from a family very religious and I don't regret it. I definitely appreciate that part of my mom and my aunties and all that. However, I wish I could have that freedom, more, I could see more broader my life, that I can, look or search for talents that I probably had then and make it bigger and then probably explore something else in life. And unfortunately, well, we were limited to certain things, certain education and whatnot. Nowadays, I hear a lot of the emotional intelligence, how to take care of as a child, I would say, right? And that's so nice because in my time it didn't exist that. So I wish I would know better mental health, you know, because you were limited to whatever we learn in school and at home,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm. Mhm.
So yeah,
And
that's my
do you know, was there a particular time in your life where that hit you the hardest, that you wish you would have known that?
particularly in my life, where, for instance, when I start working, for instance, right, then you start relating to other people, and they're more open-minded, and then you explore different countries, way of cultures, and that's when you say, yeah, for instance, when I was single, I couldn't travel, put it that way, unless I go with my sister. I wish, like nowadays, people, they just take off, right? They finish in school, and they just want experience. And that's something that would love, that I will regret that I didn't do it on at that time. Now that I do it, since I'm this age, of course you appreciate many things, but you don't have the same health. You have certain limitations, I would say.
Okay. And I'm glad, because I think you've made up for a lot of that lost time in terms of travel, which is, really great that you've been able to do that. I know we shared a lot of that recently to your recent trip to Europe. How about you,
Yeah.
Mom? Something you wish you knew when you were younger?
Well, I know that there's so many things that once we grow older, we wish we knew. And of course, you cannot anticipate the things that are going to happen to you, because there is this old saying or a prayer that I remember often, and it says something like, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. But I think one of the things I thought about this, and I said, I agree with Tia Laura. Well, if she did, imagine me 15 years before her. We had a certain way, that you were educated in a certain guidelines and up to a certain limit, like she says. But I personally, after things that happened in my adult life, I wish that I would have paid attention more to my character, to the way I do things, or I did. I have changed little by little, but I wish I had, have learned assertiveness, to speak clearly and firmly. Don't think too much about what other people say or do. One of the things you were saying, you have your own perspective or your own being. And I wish I had learned or practiced to be more assertive, have more initiative, because later in life I would have been able to use that, especially in difficult times. And I know that sometimes you cannot change who you are, your temperament, but there are things that I think I should have paid more attention and would have prepared me, like it prepares, everybody later in life. Of course, we don't know what's going to happen, but I wish, I had done different in that. I had learned to be more that way.
And I know we talked before about family dynamics and how that influences, and culture too, right? Because I think that's a part of it too, both from a religious perspective and an ethic perspective, how that influenced those things that both of you are talking about. And so it's easy to reflect on that now, but I'm sure in the moment it would have been tougher to apply those things, right? Because, and this is going to tie into what I'm going to mention too, because I think, and we've talked about how family is a core for a lot of people, and a core value is to keep your family happy, and and to do right by them, and that means applying rules, religious values, all those things that I think shape who we are early on. And then, like Aunt Laura said, once you're exposed to other people and other ways of thinking, and it's not that you're going against your family, but you're opening your mind to other possibilities too. And I'm not going to say what's right or wrong, because it's different for everyone. So for me, I think, and I think I impose this on myself more than family influence, but when I went to school, and I think I've talked before about academics being very important early on for me to shape me, right? Because for me, I was very driven for some kind of great future. And so when I got into a really good undergraduate school, it was also a very competitive school. I think there's like at the time, there were 20,000 applicants and 1,600 got in. So it's a very small group that gets in. So now you're in a big group of people where maybe in your high school you were the best, but now you're with the best of the best. And so that gives you a different perspective and a different drive to really prove yourself. And so I think for me in that era in particular, anytime I had some kind of academic loss, I really took that to heart. And it was really devastating because I think too, and I know not everyone goes to college, but when those who do, this is sort of the launching pad, right, to set you off on a future. So this is like your adulthood beginning. And so there's a feeling of like, I have to really excel here so that I then finish this and go on to a great job, et cetera, career, whatever. So I think it was that zoom out piece that I wish I had, because you can focus so much on the little things that it just unravels your entire being. And it was a tough time for me because I think it would rattle me enough to get really depressed, and it's dangerous because you're not with family, you're on your own, you've got friends, your chosen family, etc. But I think it really took away from the experience of being in a really great place. And I think something we're all alluding to is time, and that present moment wherever you are is like, you can't recapture that. Once you've missed that opportunity, it's gone. And I think, and that's what a lot of parents said as they dropped their kids off. Enjoy yourself. This is going to be the best time of your life, And it's only now, like, I can fully understand that, because you can't recapture that time. Also, just to have perspective and not to do that comparing myself to others, right? Everyone has their own paths and trajectories. And I think it was harder to see that in the moment then, but I really wish I would have had that then,
Mhm. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So now that you know this lesson, how do you think applying this lesson to something you experienced when you were younger would have changed that part of your life? Do you think about that? I'll start with the Alauda.
Yes. Yes, definitely. Because when you have an open-minded, in spite of the education and the years and the unmature, you will see, you explore more things. You will accept more things. You're probably missing good stuff at that moment, right? Whatever it is. Like in my situation, I would say that I probably would live more than just getting married at 24. To me, right now, it's very young, 24, to get married. And back then, it was like, you get married at 24, you are never going to get married, right? So these taboos and things that they teach you, and it's like, okay, and then you realize and say, what the heck? I have the whole world right in front of me. And here you are again in a situation of a religious and what is allowed and what is not, and divorce is not a question, and all that things. Then you're very restricted, and you get really disappointed to yourself. You get frustrated, and you have to fight those feelings. And am I doing it right? Now that I see nowadays how the situation is, how open they are, how flexible things are, you can choose, you can do. That's when I regret it. And I say, you know what? I wish I would have these kind of things or certain things back then, because, again, you want to explore more things in the world, right? Or culturally, or meeting people. I mean, I love meeting people, really, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I got frustrated because now I have a different life at 24, right? I couldn't have a chance to explore until I made my decision, right?
Yeah. And I think, to your point about marrying young, and I think a lot of people, probably internationally too, certainly nationally, they're pushing that age out to get married. And I think that's a big part of it, is really seeing like adulthood as your time to explore and expose yourself to a lot of things, because things change once you're married. And again, it was sort of that concept for you within your family. That's just what you did. And probably harder in that time to break away from living up to that. But I get the sense now, being single and, obviously once your child was adult, also gave you more opportunity to explore more on your own too, but you're really taking advantage of that to be able to do the things that maybe you didn't get to do as much of in that time frame.
Oh, yes. I became crazy. Wild.
That's so right.
Vámonos de aquí. I want to explore the world. I want to meet
There you go.
people.
And you're still young. You're still young.
How about you, Mama?
Yeah.
Is there a time that you reflect on in particular in your past that the lesson that you talked about would have really changed the trajectory of something?
I think it would have changed some, some of the things that happened later. Again, if I had tried to build my character more assertive, more trying to find things, inquisitive, maybe it's not the word, because you kind of accepted things and didn't ask much. And talking about, like you said, zooming into something at the present instead of the large perspective. And yeah, it would have changed because, for example, after the divorce and whatnot I went through, and you kids went to college, and like you were just saying, you were concentrating so much in succeed, because after the divorce, unfortunately, you don't have the support of your father and your mother as you should. And that also has a lot to do that you get all this on yourself. And that's what I think I would have changed if I had done that. Trying to relearn things or change in my youth would prepare me to be more alert. I think that concentrated on whatever was going on here and not so much in, going away in school, finding out, being more into it, to have the initiative to not just concentrate here, but being how you were doing, your brother who also went to other place, away from what was our home. I think if I had tried in my youth, I would have reacted different and probably, change in how I helped you guys. I think.
Mm-hmm. And I know I'm asking this question, and I'm not presenting it as an exercise everyone should do, because I also think it's challenging to do the what if I would have known this and I would have done this then, right? Because I don't. My personal sense is I think it's about moving forward for most folks, but I think it's more just for the topic of discussion for people to think about. And I'd be curious what people listening to it think about themselves and lessons they wish they would have applied at a certain moment in time, because maybe that would have changed a lot of their life. And again, I think it's difficult when you're in the future, thinking back then, like, I should have done this, because it's not that easy, right? There's circumstances that existed that influenced those outcomes too. But I know, and I spoke for myself, that I think if I would have applied the zoom out and trusting myself concepts back then, I think I would have had a more, not that I had a bad college experience, but I think I would have been able to do a lot more fun stuff and really have enjoyed the environment I was in, maybe have done other activities. I was very busy, but I might have been open to more of that instead of being so hyper focused on just
like having been more relaxed, you mean?
Yeah. More relaxed.
Well,
I didn't have a lot of time, but maybe I know there were things I skipped out on because I was more focused on just like making sure I made certain grades to make sure that I, did really well. But, even though we reflect back and say, okay, maybe this would have changed the trajectory of something, sometimes being in that moment and applying what you knew at the time, still some good came out of it, whether that was a lesson you learned maybe the tough way or something else that happened. So I'm curious if you reflected on that, what comes to mind for you around that? What was the good that came out of doing what you did in that moment, even though you don't have the knowledge you have now? Dialauda, we'll start with you.
Yeah. Well, definitely, it was meant to be, I would say. No, things happen for a reason. And like your mama said early at the beginning, right? I think I learned to value myself, I would say, and like you, maybe I felt under pressure of helping my family, of helping myself, of getting out, of being someone, because I really, I always encourage myself to learn more things, to start getting in a better position, I would say. So yeah, if I wouldn't have that life, I wouldn't be living what I did before. And I really enjoy my life. I mean, when I moved from here to Vallarta, for instance, just married, I mean, of course, terrible marriage, but I enjoy my life so much. That's when I applied for the airline. That's when I started learning. That's when I came up everything, right? So I wouldn't change anything. Honestly, I feel very blessed
Mhm.
and in the way I've been, develop and coming all the way through with bad and good and, things that happens in
Mhm.
life,
Mhm.
right? That's what it is.
And I
Life.
think there's, you know, depending on your perspective, right? I know we've talked about this, people who have a different sense of spirituality or faith, there's a reason for the way things work out the way they do. And I think there are lessons embedded in there that the now us could wish we could change something because we think it would have been a different, better outcome according to our definition. There may have been a reason things happened the way they did that you may not even really know. So it sounds like for you, it led to some other opportunities and maybe indirectly push you to even really reflect more on what's important to you versus pleasing other people or living to other people's definitions of what you needed to do.
Exactly.
How about
Yes.
for you, Mama? What was the good or the silver lining you could see of the way things worked out the way they did back then?
Well, I think thinking of how things, something good came out anyways of how things happened. At the very least, I tried in the circumstances when you guys went to college and I was left here and your younger brother went away later on. At least I tried to be present. I hope that my children, you guys felt that you were not alone, that I was here, And if, yeah, I think that what you guys went through, especially you went through in that wonderful university that required so much of a student, that it made you stronger, probably. You came out with being perseverant, in spite of difficult times, it made you stronger. And it made me, completely to focus on the family after that. And I'm so happy that you went through and whatnot. So the good thing is that it in a way, probably going through things like that, even though we say, I wish this would have been different, maybe the way it happened makes you stronger or appreciate more the now, because that's the important thing, like you said, also that we have to continue and live and appreciate what you did and what you have. So yeah, good came out of it. And we wish, again, like I said, one in a lot older than you, sweetie guys. One of the things is that you say, well, I wish this and that and the other would have been, well, look at what you have now. And most of the time we have a lot more than we realize.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that's the flip side of, like I said earlier, I don't know that it's necessarily healthy for people to say, I wish I could have changed this back then, because now you're in the now and now you're focused on the past, where then you were focused on maybe the future, right? Now so I think staying present and staying forward focused, I think, is sort of the key. But I would definitely say for you, and I'll just say, never was there a moment I thought you left me alone. And I didn't, when Lotta said something, it triggered something for me. I said I self-imposed a lot of these expectations on myself, but a lot of it was built on the foundation to give back to my family, right? To one, not be a burden to my family, and two, to be able to give back to my family, because it was the first within our immediate family to really go to a place so prestigious, I guess, to have that opportunity. That's a great stamp to have to launch you into a pretty great career. And so I think that's where the self-imposed pressure came, because I really wanted to make sure I gave back. And I do think that your experience, Mom, shifted your perspective, because I definitely think it made you realize I've lost time because I've given so much to this bad relationship, and I need to shift that focus. And I definitely see you as stronger, independent. I mean, you've been independent for so long, and you've built a community around yourself that supports you, is positive, all the things that maybe I know you had snippets of that, friends and things like that around you, but a lot of it was built around the expectations from the marriage. And so I think you've definitely broken out of that. And so that makes me happy, right? That you've been able to have that out of a bad experience. And I think for me, you're right. I think it was tough, but I think it made me resilient and it made me persevere and it made me really diligent. And, unfortunately, I think that way of thinking bled into my beginning career, and probably not even until my maybe early 40s did I really start thinking like I have to let go of like this ideal situation and just focus on what I have, what is good about my life outside of those things, because work, school, those are a small part of a very larger picture of your life. And so just step away from, zoom out, step out of that, right? Or else you're going to miss all of that.
Exactly, because then we keep on saying, and yeah, we fight because the same thing happened to me, that I had to learn to let go, because it's easy to say what happened, or the mistakes or whatnot, but we cannot let, time, the precious time we can have now and enjoy what you have now, be ruined by something that, well, is with experience.
Mm-hmm.
In a way, like Tia Laura said, some of the things you choose or you stay in, or even though it's negative, is because of the way you were educated. And if you have learned to see, the world, like she said, other cultures, other people, and open yourself, that's a big win right there.
Yes. Appreciate life, because that's all we have, and who knows how long, right? So it's like one day at a time. You open your eyes, you're blessed. Like we have been talking before in different videos. What do you do? Meditation, nutrition, but especially emotionally. Emotionally, we have to, learn and appreciate and grow in that way, because actually aging is just physically, right? Sometimes your heart keeps all the time young. Very young.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Young at heart always.
And
Yes.
in preparing for this conversation, and Laura found something that I will read in English to everyone. I will include in this in the original Spanish version, but let's see if I get it right.
Okay.
So it's 3 truths of life. The first is, don't worry about people from your past. There's a reason they aren't in your present. The second is, a person changes for 2 reasons: because they suffered a lot or they learned enough. And third, don't depend on anyone in your life, only in God, because even your shadow abandons you when you are in the darkness.
Oh, yes.
That is
Very
very,
nice.
very good, very profound and true.
Very profound.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a thing to meditate, because
Completely.
we tend to stay in the past, right? And we bring it when you have the chance. It's like, oh, I remember when I used to do this, or oh, this is what because it's happening because back then. I mean, let it go.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it might not be easy. We all have our own experiences that were not so positive. And it's not easy to say, well, let go and appreciate what you have, because it's true.
Yeah. Well, we are the sum of our experiences. And so I think it's hard to let go of some things more than others. And I think all of it shapes us. And so, again, although we wish we could change some things, I think there's a reason that those things happened. And the key now is to just take the cumulative growth you've made, and use that as a stronger version of yourself to now focus on now, my life now, and what's quality in my life now, and what do I want to maintain that quality, and then go forward from there, right? So I'm curious what people think, if any of this struck a chord with anyone, if they have other lessons they learned over time and wisdom they gained they wish they could have applied somewhere else, but also maybe reflecting on the silver linings from the things that even the tough things they went through. How did that ultimately benefit them or shape them in a way that made them a stronger person today. I'd love to hear those in the comments. You like this, like it, consider subscribing because we have a lot more coming. Yeah, but I think it was a great conversation. We'll wrap up by quickly introducing ourselves. First, my mom
Ana,
and my tia.
Laura.
And I'm Joanna, and we want to remind everyone, whether it's good, bad, or funny,
leave
live
it
it
up.
up.
Ah,